America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you live every Thursday about this time, and I want to tell you why you should go into student debt for the humanities. Biden just came out with this bill, taking away, $10,000 worth of debt for people. You got to fill out some paperwork. I paid off my student loans a few years ago. I don't think anyone should have to endure loans. I think it's good for the nation to have a more educated populace, and it's not. But people say, and I've heard people say, in many different ways. Well, you should have majored in something like engineering or something that had money. First of all, for black people, it doesn't really matter because it's not like there are a lot of overqualified black people who don't get those fat cat jobs just because they had the right major, because part of what it is to work while black is also kissing white butt or whatever. And that's not something necessarily we want to do, even if you can do all the math. Or if you're from Europe, the maths. So it's not as if changing your major would have guaranteed you the quality of income to which you deserve. But in general, I want to make a short video about why it's okay and why we should support people going into debt to study the humanities. Right? So if education is about mobility and mobility upwards, mobility isn't always about earning potential. Right? So if you come from a home where, your parents were awful to each other, you going to college and making more money than your parents won't stop you from becoming awful. Most people become their parents or their grandparents unless they have some sort of ideological intervention, huge, massive ideological intervention, and not just going to college. You got to go to you need to have a massive ideological intervention. To learn how to be different, to learn how to relate to people in different ways, to learn more about freedom. I try to wage that ideological intervention every Thursday at about this time. And if you appreciate what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com. But what I want to say is we have to think about mobility and the conditions it require, what mobility entails and the conditions for freedom that a self-governing populace need, right? So as it stands in political life, if you don't go to college, the politicians say you're not fit for governing. You should go work, maybe make some money. You can be a contractor, whatever. You can make a lot of money, but stay out of politics because you're not fit for governing. And just do whatever the party, Republican or Democrats, tell you to do. That's pretty much the message we send to people who don't go to college, right? And I think actually everyone's fit for governing, and everyone needs to be able to be fit for governing if we're going to have a functional democracy. And let's be honest, there's a way in which that's not necessarily wrong, because governing in a democracy is a skill. Being free in a democracy is a skill. And if you're just kind of parochially inclined and will do whatever, and if you haven't been exposed to the quality of ideas or can even listen to qualities of ideas that don't always agree with you, and if you've kind of had a narrow education, you might not even be able to listen to or hear or keep up with arguments that you don't already antecedently agree with, then you're not fit for democracy. So if we need a liberal arts education in order to participate in the political project, which is America, then we need to fund people getting a liberal arts education in order as a political right. Right? And, there are lots of ways to learn things. You don't have to actually learn things through college. But if you're not going to learn it at home, especially if you're white and the whole world kind of already confirms your antecedent biases, then you're going to be a problem. You need an ideological intervention. You need the exposure before you can be free from your idolatry. You need, there needs to be an institution that's trained on preparing you for freedom and that's training you to be able to govern with me. Right? So insofar as we don't do that in K through 12 schools, we need to do that in college. And that's not necessarily about you making more money for the market. Actually, a lot of white people, if they were more educated, they would make less money because they would have better politics and probably be a little bit less predatory. There's an entire industry of of people who make money off of black exploitation. If those people were properly educated, they would be less likely to go into those industries, right? So this idea that you go to college to make money and everything that you learn in college should be indexed to how it will translate to a marketable skill is not exactly adequate to the aspirations of, self-governing people. Right, but you need to actually be functional in the market. I do think people need skills, and they should be able to, produce goods and services that people want to buy. And by the way, once again, if you appreciate the goods and services I produce every Thursday, go over to www.funkyacademic.com. I just don't think that's the whole of what freedom entails, and freedom in a self-governing society entails. Right. So if you want to do better than your parents, it's not just about making more money than your parents. For example, I joked before, back when Tiger Woods was getting beaten up by his then wife. I think she ran over him, and he was just having a bad run. And then he got caught with a string of kind of basic women. And Tiger Woods and I are about the same age. We both grew up in Orange County about the same time. And I have 3 kids. I think he's got about 3 kids. He's a little bit older than I am. But I was thinking, you know what? In terms of success, I think I'm about as successful as Tiger Woods. And I do not do anything as well as he hits that golf ball. Most people do not do anything as well as Tiger Woods hits a golf ball. I think I'm as successful as him. And it's largely because of my liberal arts education. I think Will Smith is kind of a mess. I think I'm as successful as he is. What are you saying? You're as successful as Will Smith? I'm pretty sure I'm as successful as Will Smith. In terms of, meaning in my life. I'm not as known. But in terms of actually doing well and meaningful, I love my family. I have a good life. I have most of my health. I've made mistakes, considering that I didn't know how to do much. I went to college because I didn't go to college to make money. I went to college because I didn't know how to do anything. I wasn't single mom raised on TV, but I just didn't know how, life is complicated, and I didn't want to be any of my parents. So I had to go to college to learn how to be, not just learn how to make money, but I needed an institution where I could figure out how to be a functional person. And unlike my parents, I stayed in my marriage. If you don't want to end up like your parents, that's also a reason to go into debt to go to college. Not just because it'll make more money, and you'll make more money. Because let's say your parent, your mom or your dad is a jerk, right? And then you go to college and you make more money than your parents, but you're still a jerk. You're still losing at life, right? So you go to college, especially a liberal arts school, in order to learn how to be free. And part of being free is learning how to be free with other people in all of your relationships. There is not too much advice I would actually take from Will Smith or even Tiger Woods. Would you take marriage advice from any of them? Not especially. I don't know what to tell you. Would you take career advice from either of them? Well, it depends on the career. Obama's another one. There's a limit to the quality of advice I would take from him about my life. I want my daughters to be more impressive than both Malia and Sasha. So we have to. Oh, by the way, let me hit the opening. People get mad when I run right over the opening. So hit the beat.
To the beat, y'all. Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and I'm featuring your front.
Oh, so yeah, I was reading the comments during the opening, and I saw that there are black people all over these United States with the right degrees who do not have a job, because it's not just about having the right degrees, it's about the willingness to kiss a certain amount of white butt in the right way, the right amount of pucker. And if you're not willing to do that, then this economy might not be for you. But so we need to talk about education for freedom, not just necessarily education for the marketplace. And what it means to do better than your parents, not necessarily financially, although that might, I mean, if you're poor, that's going to be a significant factor. But for a lot of folks, doing better than your parents means, like, you know, actually being able to see. For me, I've said this before because it's important. Doing better than my parents meant like actually being able to raise my kids. My dad didn't get to raise me. And I feel like that's a pretty big failure. And you look all over my extended family, like all of the women are divorced. So I don't have too many male cousins, but yeah, like my extended family, like on my American side, like they're divorced, and I didn't want that to be me. And so I went to school to learn how to do that. And, you know, indirectly, divorce is very expensive, so that's important. But mostly, like, learning how to be a free person and in a relationship with other free people is itself its own skill. And, you know, I also didn't want to be like, I didn't want to be Will Smith or Tiger Woods either. So in terms of what success means and why you should go into debt for a liberal arts education and not just learn something practical. Sure, you have a lot of money, but still you end up, you know, marrying the wrong person. And not only is marrying the wrong person very expensive, it also, I don't know if there's a failure in life. Like, I can't imagine a bigger failure in my life than not being able to raise my kids. Like that would be, anything else I do, if my kids end up screwed up or I don't get to raise them, then I've made a fundamental problem in my whole, like, I could be a multi-millionaire if I'm not the one who was raising my kids. Or my kids want, because like they need advice from their dad and they can't reach me, then I have screwed up. And you know, when they put me in the ground, that's what I'll say. And so that's what I go to school to learn. Now, it looks like learning other things. It looks like studying philosophy. It looks like studying a lot about institutions of freedom and politics. Because not only do I need to be there for my kids, I need to actually have content for when they have questions, and then I can give them good answers. So, but learning how to be there for my kids is something I had to learn, because it's not like I had that from my parents, because, you know, my mom divorced my dad, and she just divorced him because she admits now that she just kind of divorced him because that's what people were doing. In other words, she lacked the quality of education that, and you know, she was a nurse, she did fine, but like she just kind of divorced because that's just, she turned 40 and decided that she didn't want to deal with a broke Negro, and she divorced, and that was she didn't actually think through the way, like, I think a well-educated person would, what that means, right? So you should go into debt for that quality of education that will make you a better partner. That'll make you a better business partner. That'll make you a better, you know, lover. That'll make you a better parent. That'll make you a better person in any sort of free inquiry. And that means allowing other people to be free with you. And that's worth that. And that's a debt that we should support, because that's the kind of education that makes better citizens. And at no point in time did I say that that's necessarily marketable. Now, I happen to believe that it is. Like, I'm one of these guys who believes that you can do fine in the economy and even in the bedroom by being intellectual, by being thoughtful. And that's actually, in this time of woe and want where people are kind of thirsty for wisdom, I could be that fresh drink of water in all sorts of arenas. So that is but that's an accident. That's an accident of our time. I think in general, even if it's not marketable, people should go, and if they need to learn kind of cultural things, they should go and learn cultural things. And we need to come to admit that you don't, like, America's complicated. Modern America is very complicated. If you don't have kind of a cultural awareness and depth and wisdom, you're going to end up screwing up your kids. Even if you do your job right, you're going to end up making some huge mistake that might not have to do, that might have financial ramifications. You you guys don't know. There are a lot of white people who the only reason you think they're good parents is that they could afford their kids' rehabs. Their kids multiple stints in rehabs. Or, when white kids screw up their marriage and leave their kids divorced, it's all right because if they of a certain income bracket, their kids will be absorbed by America, even if they don't have, the wisdom that could come through and the stability that comes through having two parents. So, raising a basic, I'll tell you, raising a basic white kid is actually the easiest thing in the world. And, they're so bad at it. That's why they raise non-basic ones. Yeah. So, I could go into like how mediocre white parents are, but I won't do that now. I just know that I was not going to be a mediocre parent, and I needed to go to school to learn how not to be, and not to study necessarily that formally, but to study, philosophy, study wisdom, to study the humanities, to learn how to be free and be with, and raise free people and be with people who themselves are, and be free with other people and enable their freedom. Right? And so that's not as lucrative as studying engineering, but you study engineering and then become a jerk, then what are you going to do? Like, then you're surprised when you hit your kids because you're a jerk and you raised kids who either don't like you or like you, but themselves you're kind of ashamed of because they're not great people. Right? So I want to raise great people, and for that I had to learn how to be great people, and I hope to spread out a little bit of wisdom and kind of be useful in this medium for anybody who needs to be great people themselves watching on the YouTube. And by the way, once again, if you appreciate what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50. And people say that, like, let's be real, everyone worships status, and status is the most important thing. Status is very important because you need to be recognized in order to actually do anything and to be anything. Part of what it is to be something is to be recognized as that thing that you are. But status for the sake of status is confusing. Abstractly famous is like you're a Kardashian. You could be famous, but famous for what exactly? Famous for being famous, which is a dubious, is once again a great way to screw up your life. A great way to screw up your life, because that doesn't mean you know how to, be in a meaningful relationship with anyone. It just knows that everybody knows your name. All right. So I think that we should support people going into debt for a humanities education, because I think we need to govern with, in a democracy, other humans. And you need to learn how to be a human, a functional human, and learn how to listen to and administer arguments and enable freedom and be free yourself, which means kind of emancipating yourself from whatever kind of cultural baggage that you've imbibed for the first 18 years in your parochial household. And if that's what you need to do, I think the government should actually support you in doing it. Support you to do it. And yeah, because we're about supporting freedom, not necessarily like the preamble of the Constitution is about like the blessings of liberty, and like part of the blessings of liberty is knowing what to do with and knowing how to govern in a free society. And you don't learn that, and especially a market-based free society, which is free but also kind of predatory. So, and you don't know how to do that and with other people unless you're actually taught. So if you aren't taught that in K through 12, and you need to go through more schooling to get that, and learn how to free other people. Because I not only went to school to learn to be free myself, but part of being free is to learn how to struggle for my people, right? So I went to school to learn how to free other people, and that is part of the part of the struggle and part of the purpose of being free, of governing in a democracy, right? So I think it's a public good. We should support that. And we should stop saying that like blank and blank should have studied something else to pay out so they didn't have to go into loans. Like I think instead We should just actually think through what the purpose of an education is and what the demands and the needs of a free populace are. And they don't necessarily need more welders. They also need more welders, and you can get a good job welding, but they need people who are good parents, who are, thoughtful humans, who are good spouses, who are good civic members outside of being good welders, right? Because all of those things kind of mutually reinforce each other. And if we just focus on making sure that everyone's a software engineer, but not making sure that everyone's not a jerk, then there'll be all these kind of externalities that can't be priced in immediately. Like parents who end up spending, over $100,000 in rehab, because, you go to rehab, you end up going to rehab 2 and 3 times for their kid or kids. Like, they should have actually just probably read more books and raised better kids and had a maybe lower stakes job and raised more kids. Or if there are some parents who don't like their kids. Well, whose fault is that? Well, you didn't know how to be a parent, so you raised a kid you don't like. That's on you. If you don't enjoy time with your kids, you failed at being a parent because you created kids that, that's all on you. And there are a lot of parents who don't enjoy time with their kids because they created bad kids. And so if they're like, well, I could have gone to college and taken on this debt, studied something like English or philosophy, and probably been a more thoughtful parent, but instead I studied, computer science and kind of took my eye off the ball, and now I hate my kid. Well, that's expensive too. Multiple rehabs. Also divorce. You made a lot of money on the job, but you picked the wrong spouse, or for a lot of reasons, you weren't wise enough to make the kinds of decisions about your family life. So you end up divorced, and that's really expensive too. So was the money worth it? So there are lots of arguments for why it's important to pick the right person and to be wise and why this is kind of a cultural phenomenon that you need to study, because you don't come out of the womb knowing everything that you need in order to not end up beaten by your wife like Tiger Woods, or I wouldn't be surprised if Jada hits Will every now and then. But it's there's a lot that goes on, and a humanities education might actually, and the education you get at thefunkyacademic.com might actually kind of clue you in so you can see the signs of, whether you're making important mistakes in the course of your whole life, right? So college degree isn't just about the money you get with your college degree. It's also about the wisdom you attain through the process. And pick your major and your thoughts accordingly. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next week talking about something completely different.